Melinda Haynes, license number 102308. Now, borderline personality disorder, I believe personally, isn't something that should just be thrown around as a diagnosis. So I'm going to go over some of the characteristics of borderline personality disorder, and I will put the diagnostic criteria in the description at the bottom here. But I want to say that I think chronic or complex post-traumatic stress should be explored. So when we have childhood or developmental trauma, it can manifest as looking like a personality disorder, specifically as borderline personality disorder, and specifically in females. So before anybody gives you a diagnosis or before you decide that you have borderline personality disorder, please consider the fact that there may be unresolved or unprocessed trauma in your history. And when we resolve that trauma, when we give that trauma a voice, when we give those wounds, those inner wounds a voice, a lot of times those characteristics of borderline personality disorder, for example, will go away. Okay, so let's look at some of the characteristics. One of the characteristics of borderline personality disorder is a desire for self-harm or for suicidal ideation. So if you think a lot about dying, if you've planned your death, if you've planned any kind of attempt or carried out any kind of attempt for potential suicide, that's a huge sign. And I want to stop right here and say, if that's the case, please, 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 please just seek help immediately. Call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, call a counselor, get some help as soon as possible. Don't just wander around with those kinds of feelings. Those are burdensome and heavy, and it's not okay. I don't want you to suffer like that if that's the case. But that is one of the characteristics of borderline, is having those feelings of just wanting to die. Another characteristic is kind of an internal sense of panic and apprehension, not really knowing who you are or where you belong or where you fit in or who loves you or who doesn't love you. So it's this constant not knowing. There's no sure footing. I can never feel comfortable in my own skin. I can never feel okay with who I am or where I'm at or what I'm doing. There's always a question, always kind of maybe a sense of doom happening. Excuse me. And another characteristic is that, there's a tendency to go black and white. So it might be, you're hot one day, you're cold the next day. People may accuse you of, come here, get away. Those kinds of relationships where there's like a push or a pull. And a lot of times your relationships will seem very intense at first, but then they go really bad. They go really sour. So you may fall in love quickly, but then you also will end up either being hurt very badly or end up just being disgusted with the person and breaking up. And so there's a lot of that. Also, to go along with this sense of kind of not knowing and having that, that feeling, a constant feeling of not fitting in, may be different, different religions, different faiths. So you may have already been in your life, for example, you may have already been Buddhist and Christian and atheist. You may have tried a different, variety of beliefs. You may have tried a different style. So I don't know what the styles are called these days. Emo, I don't know. You may have tried different goth styles or hippie, in style fashionable, I don't know, just different styles in order to kind of figure out who am I and what works and what fits in. Now this kind of behavior is common in the teenage years when we're kind of trying on different personalities, different groups, different styles, seeing where we fit in, how we're like our parents, how we're not. But if we're still doing that well into adulthood, when everybody else around us, maybe our age, seems like they already kind of have a handle on it and they're already kind of settled into who they are and what style they have, and we're still out getting, just different constant hairstyles, constant, and it's not just hairstyles, okay? It's an example. One day my hair's pink, the next day it's green, the next day it's classic. If we're constantly doing that, not as a fashion statement, but as a way to figure out who we are, and if I present myself to the world in this way, then I'll find out who I am. If that's the intention underneath it, then that would fall under another category or another diagnostic criteria for borderline. So there are a few more. I'm going to go ahead and post those in the description, and you can take a look at them. If you think that you fit the criteria, please, like I say, check out the trauma aspect first before you run around diagnosing yourself or feeling hopeless or lost. One of the therapies that they use right now is DBT therapy to address borderline. I believe that it's important to use DBT along with some kind of trauma-informed therapy so that we can look at some of the underlying reasons that we have these kinds of different or very strong emotional responses and different ways of interpersonal dealings. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thanks.